This is Mahesh Ravi, and in this video, we're going to take a look at a very interesting design technique. It's not, in fact, a design technique. We are going to adapt a storytelling technique and we're going to apply it to creating a design. We're going to use the three-act structure in filmmaking or storytelling and bring it to create a really interesting design. Before we start the design process, let's talk about what is a three-act structure in storytelling. If you take a look at this diagram, this represents the three-act structure in storytelling. So every story or every movie is basically divided into three acts. In the first act, which is called the setup, we are introduced to the characters, their relationship, and the premise of the story. In Act 2, we are shown a conflict. The action is rising, the stakes are getting high, so the tension is building. So in Act 3, we are basically seeing the crisis and the falling action, which is basically the resolution, right? So setup, confrontation, and resolution, where this is basically most of the stories. If you think about any story out there, it can be explained in these three acts. Now, it's not possible to take this three act and apply it to do a static graphic design because graphic design doesn't have the element of time. We are actually showing one instance as a story. We will not be able to show the three acts together, but an interesting technique is to take any of these plot points and tell a story from that perspective. For instance, I'm going to take all these plot points and mention it right here. So in this particular video, we are going to create a poster. Let's imagine that we are going to create a poster of a zombie film. And we are going to take the plot points from the three-act structure and we are going to create a poster from each one of these plot points. And let's see how dynamic our story becomes, how expressive our design becomes, and how easy it will be for you to come up with design concepts. So the whole idea is to create a poster for a zombie film, and we will be creating 4 posters. One is an introduction poster where we are just introduced to the concept of, let's say, a zombie evolution, a zombie pandemic, an outbreak. Rising action is where the zombies could be taking over. The tension is building. The crisis is where the world reaches its breaking point, right? The zombies already took over. There is a major risk which is happening. And the falling action is a resolution. How did people deal with it, right? So we are going to use Midjourney to create the images that we want for the poster, and we'll finish the design in Photoshop. So let's head over to create the images in Midjourney. So we're going to enter the prompt here. So be very articulate when you are actually writing the prompt. So say that, as we decided, right? It's the introduction poster that we are creating right now, where we are not going to show any explicit images of the zombie pandemic. We're just going to show the origin of it. We're just introducing people to the origin story of the zombie calypse, right? So as we were ideating, one of such theories is that the entire pandemic started from an ape, all right? So we'll create an image of that. Okay, so this image, we are going to work with that. We're going to open that in a browser. And yeah, that looks decent. So let's save that. So the second poster, as we discussed earlier, the second poster is going to be the rising action. So this is where we have to show that the tension has started. The zombie apocalypse already started and the tension is rising, right? So we'll actually write the prompt for that. Let's go here, start imagining. So I'm going to, for this particular poster, I want to actually show a door with a couple of zombies standing outside the door. So I'm going to write, okay, so we found some very interesting images. Let's take a look at, now the next one is crisis. So crisis is where the situation has reached its breaking point, the saturation level of chaos, and then so we have to sort of show that zombies completely took over, the entire world broke down, and we are in a real pickle, right? So let's create a poster for that. So we would be looking for images which actually shows a post-apocalyptic state. Let's again use Midjourney for creating that, and have an image to go with this. Let's take that as well. Now the last part is falling action. Falling action is where we have to show what happened what is the end game there? What did we actually survive, or are we still fighting? Right. So that's the act 3, and they are to show how this pandemic or the story of this pandemic ended. So I want to sort of say that they actually survived by moving to a place where zombies cannot reach easily, maybe on top of water. So let's try to find an image for that. Right. So now that we have all the images which are required for uh, our design process to start, we can head over to Photoshop and start our poster design. Now, I've used Midjourney here for convenience. If you have time to do this, you can actually create your own images by using stock photography. So let's go to Photoshop and start building our poster. We'll start with a new file, and we will create a simple poster dimension right here. We'll not make it very large, but I think this is fine. Let's create, and we have this. So let's crop it off a bit to, right. So we have our poster size here. Let's start working on our first poster, which is the introduction poster. So we have the image of an unassuming ape sitting right there. And we're going to use this guy to introduce or tease the audience regarding the upcoming pandemic. So we have this. Let's scale him up a little bit. All right. We need to do some stuff to fix the image because AI is not perfect yet, and it might not compute the entire pixels correctly. You can see that a couple of things are basically going through the ape and stuff like that. So we need to fix that. And we might have to sort of play with the height of the whole document as well. We might have to extend a couple of stuff. So what we will do is we'll take this part, the top part of this. Let's layer where copy that. Now let's move it to the top. Now what we'll do is we will delete apart from here. What we're going to do is we need these lines, these grills to be scaled a little bit. So what we're going to do is we will layer where copy that, edit, content array scale, and we will stretch this so that it just goes and fills that part perfectly. Okay, now the top part is fixed. We can do the same for the bottom part here as well. We will just take this section and layer where copy, content array scale, and then stretch it off. So we will deal with this a little later. Okay, this is fine. Right now, let's take all these and then merge it together. So we have just one layer here. Let's fix these lines here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these lines from here. So we can sort of take this layer where copy that and just move it over so that it sort of comes like this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I can just do it like this. Select these, and then we can start erasing, and we just need to keep the part where only that gap is there, so it will sort of blend well. So maybe something like that. We can do the same here as well. Okay, so that actually looks better. Let's take this, merge it again. So we have the image right here. We can now do some corrections here to make it look better. So I'm just going to make it a little darker here. So let's just brush. Okay. Now we have the image. We'll call it the introduction poster. Now what we need to do is we need to add the other elements of the poster into it. So let's work on the typography. So the name that I'm going to give to this particular movie is Fever Mob. So let's type it. Okay, this is what I want. So let me just design the type how I want it. So I don't want it to be, see, one thing that we need to actually always think about is that if you're actually making movie posters, you definitely need to understand the main function of the poster is to register the names of films into the viewer's mind. So if you make the type too complicated, they might not understand what you're trying to say. So try to keep it simple, but at the same time attractive and give it a personality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with a thicker serif, the sans serif. So I have the Archivo black. Let's see if that works. So I'm going to go to the type tool, character settings, and maybe bring the leading closer. I'll also bring this closer. And I'm going to take the fever part and I'm going to reduce the size of it so it sort of fits this line. So maybe, yeah, that might be a good idea. So I'm going to just bring the mob also closer. So this is how I'm going to write the text here. So let's select the whole thing, change the color to white. And this is my starting point with the type. I might not need this size, so I will select it and I will reduce the size a little bit. So I'm going to bring it like this. And maybe I can sort of start putting it here. As I said, I might need to have or give a little bit of personality. This is not mandatory, but I think that being a zombie film, a little bit of texture wouldn't do much harm. So I'm going to just look for some texture. Let's look for some grunge texture here. I'm finding some grunge here. Okay, so this is an interesting grunge. So I'm going to take that, put it right here, scale it down, place it above my type, and maybe now I can use the clipping mask, Alt and click here to give that texture to the text, right? It looks pretty cool off the bat. So I have the text written here. I can add more credits to it. So I'm going to add a tagline also, just in case. So inspired from real incidents is what I'm going to give as a tagline. I'm going to reduce the size of it. And now the thing is that I have a very bold text that I'm using it for the movie's title, so I might not need a bolder text to show the tag. So I can maybe choose a different typeface here, make it a little smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Bebas New and make it a little loose here. So I have something like this, inspired from real incidents. I might not need the scale to be this big. I'm going to reduce that also. I will keep it again, maybe to the center of the design, or maybe put it here. Makes more sense. Yeah. So I have this currently, and now maybe the entire movie credit thing. I can actually look for movie poster credits, credits, and we might get a lot of pre-made, stuff like this. And this is maybe all what we need, right? So we have that. Let's scale it up a little bit. We will invert it because we want it in white. So Control I to invert that, and maybe change the blending mode to screen. Okay. Cool. So this works, right? So we have the poster, the first introductory poster ready, which sort of shows the scare factor, right? Something is coming, and maybe it is coming from an ape. We are not showing anything. We are not talking about the pandemic, but what causes the pandemic, right? So what we will do is we'll actually take all these, top layers, we'll group it and we'll put it into a folder, say the titles, right? So we have the titles in one layer and we have the background in one layer. Now for this, I didn't do any image corrections and all that. You can definitely do that. You can maybe play with the curves. We can make it a little more darker, maybe give it a little more tint. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so we have the first poster, which is ready. Let's save it and let's work on the second poster. Now, the second poster that we're going to work for is the rising action. So the tension is building. The zombies are already out. We already have the image for that. And let's bring that image. Okay, so we have the image right in here. Let's bring it bigger. Yeah. Okay, that's pretty interesting composition. One side is sort of like balanced, and it's the door is acting as a really interesting division. There is one side of sort of calm, and one side is very violent, right? We can turn on the titles. Maybe the position of the titles might actually need to change a little bit. So I'm going to take that creates an interesting poster. So this is basically our second poster. So let's call it the Rising Action poster. Second poster. We can again work on the image. We can actually make it even darker and sinister, but I think this works pretty neatly. Let's work with our third poster, which is the crisis, right? So we worked on introduction, we worked on the rising action, we're going to work on the crisis, where everything went to shit, all right? So let's take that image, drop it right in. Let's turn off the title for a second so that we can have a better view of this. Scale it up. Again, we can actually use this technique, the content aware technique, to fill the sky. Okay, yeah, it works. This is okay. It's a bit too plain, but that's fine. We can bring the titles back. Let's go into the titles, take all of that. Maybe we can move it right here. Yeah, I think that's about it, right? The poster works. It actually shows the end of the world, right? So a different story. We are going to say or call it the crisis poster. And now let's work on the last one, which is the falling action, right? How did they survive, or did they actually survive this plague? So let's bring our last image, which is basically this, right? So they found a way to actually fight, or temporarily at least, to get out of the zombie attack, which is by hiding or staying in sort of like secluded inside a lake or something like that. So the image is not perfect. It needs a lot of correction, but we can still work with this. So layer via copy, edit, content aware scale it up, and we are making this guy. Okay, so we have that. Let's add a little bit of blur to reduce that stretch feeling. Okay, so that actually looks pretty cool. Okay, now we need to clean up this image. I don't think this is working, so we can take the healing brush, and I'm going to just erase the birds and stuff here. I don't need them. Okay, now another thing that doesn't work here is this guy, because it's totally out of proportions and then doesn't actually make any sense. So let's try using a content aware fill in here. So I'm going to just take this part and let's fill, or let's right click and go straight to content aware fill. And it actually looks pretty cool. So we will click OK. That person is gone from there. We can try and do the same thing here also. Let's take that, content aware fill. And instead of this, we actually want, okay, this is now okay. So we have the last layer as well. We will call it the falling action poster. Okay, we have it. Let's bring the titles. We have the fever mob title. I think we can actually place it better. Let's bring that baby here. All right, so this looks pretty good, and I'm going to save it. So I hope this actually made sense, and definitely it is going to be a value addition if you can bring techniques from other domains into design. And using the 3-act structure or the plot points of a 3-act structure to develop concepts for your graphic design will be a really valued skill. And I'll see you soon with another video. Till then, bye.